If you've ever been hit but didn't know where it came from, so you got confused and mag dumped a little kid, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like, comment, all those things help me out. The comment section is literally a barren wasteland. And guys, as always, thank you to our sponsor, ukfob.co.uk. If you want to get 5% off anything in store, use my discount code RS5 at the checkout and take 5% off anything you order. So today, guys, I want to make a little video on upgrading your Tokyo Marui Glock 17, 19 or 34, whichever one that you have. So my chosen platform for today is the Glock 17. So just want to go through some of the features, different upgrades and things that I've installed, and just how overall I have found the pistol to perform. So guys, let's jump in. Let's have a quick look at what exactly we were working with here. Upgrades that have went into this build. So as you can see, I've gone for the Tire and Tactical style slide. Very nice. So let's just talk and break down exactly what makes this build so special and what each of these parts kind of contributes to the build. So first and foremost, we're going to have a look at the slide. So the slide here is an aluminium CNC slide. It's a little bit more durable than your typical pot metal slides that you would get on like a Wii gun and things like that. So it is a little bit more durable. Obviously, I've gone for the Combat Master Tire and Tactical style because I'm obsessed with John Wick and I love the Glock 17. I think it's the perfect Glock for me. So I've went for the Glock 17 slide instead of the 34. Overall, very nice. In terms of what this actually lends to the pistol itself, other than aesthetics, it will give a harder kick. Now obviously there's a lot more involved than just putting an aluminium slide on your pistol and it's just going to give you a magic new kick. I mean, there's a lot more that goes into it than just this, so please bear that in mind. But that is one of the main reasons why you would want that, is for, you know, enhanced durability, aesthetics, and for that hard kick that's on it. So you can see that. Next I want to talk about the outer barrel here. So the outer barrel I have on this is the one that came with the slide kit itself. It's a stainless steel barrel. Now, the outer barrel doesn't really lend much to the gun itself other than durability. So other than that, it's really just for looks. It's not really going to do anything for your gun. So if you want like a threaded outer barrel, then you could go ahead and fire one on there, and at least that way you can attach suppressors, tracers, all that kind of stuff, make it all fancy. So moving on from there, we also have the inner barrel. So the inner barrel I have in this is a Maple Leaf Crazy Jet barrel. I have one of my VSR 10 and it's probably one of the best barrels that I've had so far. I do intend on putting one into my Scorpion Evo at some point, so it's definitely my favourite barrel. Moving on from that, we also have, if you can have a look in there, so in there we also have the Maple Leaf hop-up chamber, and we also have a 50-degree Maple Leaf bucking in there. I'm pretty sure it's the Autobot, but I could be wrong. It could be the super bucking. But overall, that will lend to your accuracy. So that is probably one of the most important upgrades that I would put into any Tokyo Marui Glock. So that's the very first thing that I would recommend, putting that set in there. So the set itself cost me about £40, so that would be for the inner barrel, the bucking, and the hop-up chamber, and it comes all pre-built. So you would just disassemble your gun, take off your spring guide, take out the inner barrel and outer barrel, take out the inner barrel, put the new one in, outer barrel back in with the inner barrel, spring guide on. That is literally it. So in my opinion, that is the first, probably the best upgrade that you could do to your Tokyo Marui Glock. If you want to get better accuracy of it, that is the best route to go. So moving on from that, we did have a look at the recoil spring in there. So as you noticed, inside this, just take the mag out, assemble, you've seen my recoil spring. So the recoil spring that I have in here is a 125% Guns Modify recoil spring and guide rod. So in terms of the guide rod, yes, there's durable guide rods, blah blah blah, but this guide rod is probably for aesthetics more than anything. You could probably just fire a better spring on to another guide rod, but you get them as a set. Probably costs about £10 for that, but ultimately you will want to use an enhanced recoil spring for the speed of your slide. So behind the enhanced recoil spring, you get a snappier return to battery. So you can see there that it's very fast. So if you wanted to fire quicker shots in succession, this is going to be the enhancement that you want. Also within the slide itself, there's a few more little details. Back here we have our housing, our blowback housing. We've also got our nozzle and some internals of the nozzle as well. And then obviously you've got your sights and whatnot. So the blowback housing is an essential upgrade. So if you want to change this slide, if you want to get a metal slide, the Tokyo Marui blowback housing that comes with the Tokyo Marui Glock 17 is quite heavy. So it does make it very sluggish. So if you've got something like an enhanced recoil spring and then you have a pretty heavy blowback housing, that thing is going to be fighting to come back, and it's probably not going to get cycling the whole way and able to feed another BB in. So you may find that you fire a shot and fire it again and nothing comes out. So that can be an issue. So please bear that in mind, that the blowback housing is probably the most essential upgrade. In terms of the nozzle, you want to enhance that for really durability. So there's different kind of valves and things that you can put inside the nozzle itself, but the nozzle itself really is just for the durability more than anything. So overall, that is the upper of the pistol itself. We'll move on to the trigger. Now, what we've got in here is a Salient Arms International style trigger. It's a flat face trigger, so you can have a look there. There you go. Very nice. And for anyone who's worried, there's no BBs in here, so I did check before we started filming. But the trigger itself, now this is an adjustable trigger, which means that you can adjust the take-up. Now I like having a fair amount of take-up, so the adjustment that I've made to it is very minimal. So having that take-up is quite important for me, because if it drops, you don't want it to go off and that kind of stuff. So, but overall, for aesthetics, that's the main reason why you want to upgrade this trigger, is for aesthetics. It looks cool, you have to admit. So we got like the nice little red and the red little mag base plate here. So yeah, it's not an essential upgrade to make to your Glock, but obviously it makes it feel nice. Now, let's just talk about the Tokyo Marui Glock 17 trigger. Internally for the trigger, I'll just tell you that I don't have enhanced trigger bar or anything like that. So there's no kind of modifications. This is just the stock setup for the trigger that it kind of comes with the gun. But this is probably one of my favorite triggers I've ever used on an airsoft pistol. So let's just have a quick look here. So we got that take up there, and you hit a very, very hard wall. It's very crisp break, and back to reset exactly where the break is. And again, and I absolutely love it. That alone, if I was to buy a Glock 17 and just run it standard, I would be so happy, because that trigger alone is worth it for me. You get the likes of I've had around the ASG P09 and things before in the past. You've probably seen that in some videos, but they're not. The trigger leaves something to be desired. The trigger itself is very mushy, where it just travels through. There's no wall to break. Some people may like that. I think it's very difficult to determine where that reset is on the pistol. So there has been times where I pulled the trigger, let it out slightly, tried to pull it again, and it's not went off. And that's purely because it hasn't hit that reset wall again to return back. So that for me is a big plus. It's a very tactile trigger brick, and reset. So the fact that I can hear and feel that the gun has reset is a big plus for me. It may impact your ability to shoot, shut off the shot very, very fast. But again, that's something that I'm willing to sacrifice because I'm not going to be, spamming shots. I would prefer to take my time and make sure I get that hit first time, because it's a loud weapon. Gas blowback is probably the loudest airsoft weapon you can go for, so it kind of gives away your position a lot more. Just very quickly as well, we'll come back to the slide. I do have an extended slide release on there, and it's for aesthetics, and well, just makes it easier to hit that slide release. But if I'm honest with you, having the Glock slide release, even the standard, means you have to adjust your grip. So where normally I would kind of rest my thumb here and here like that, that kind of stops that slide release from coming up. So once you've got an empty mag, that's still going to return back, whereas empty mag, you have to release it then to get it back. So it's just, but that's my only gripe about the Glock, but that's how the Glock is designed. Even the real steel Glocks that I've shot with the extended mag release, or the extended slide release, I had to adjust my grip for that. But that's the same across any Glocks, and that's not just specific to this one itself or the slide release that I've put on there. So even with the standard slide release, it does cause issues, and you just have to account for that really whenever you're gripping the weapon. Keeping in line with the kind of outer of the weapon itself, we'll move on to the lower. So on the frame itself, I have done my own custom stippling job. So I've gone for a sprinkles effect. So if you have a close look there, you can see that there's no kind of pattern, so to speak. It's just randomized dotting. For that, I just used a standard soldering iron, and the tip that I used was a flat edged soldering iron, so instead of a circular one. So in terms of the reason why, obviously it looks cool as hell, but mainly it is for the grip itself. I did also cut a little bit up under the trigger guard there, just to help get my purchase on the weapon a little bit higher, and that is something personal to me. I think that has helped with the grip itself. So not necessarily something you need to do. You've seen other people kind of cutting out the bottom of it here and stippling here and here and whatnot, so maybe I'll stipple there, but in terms of my grip on the weapon, as I grip it, my thumb always kind of falls on there, and whether it slides off or not, that's not really important. I've got this weapon light here, and that kind of, I would rather be able to move freely off that and activate that weapon light, rather than having my thumb stuck there, because ultimately it's an airsoft weapon. It's not recoiling quite heavily, so trying to maintain your grip isn't very difficult. So I don't think that was totally necessary, or cutting out a thumb ledge or anything there. So for me, it's really just this pistol grip that I wanted to modify. You can see there, this is obviously a Gen 3 Glock 17. There normally would be some little finger grooves here, so that your fingers would kind of rest and the grooves would be in between them. I've completely taken those away, obviously because I'm pushing this up a little bit. Obviously my grip is going to rise up a little bit, so you can probably see that my fingers aren't going the whole way to the bottom of the grip anymore. So that was unnecessary for me. It just would have defeated the purpose of doing this modification in the first place. So something to bear in mind if you do want to do your own custom kind of stippling job is that you may want to remove those while you're at it, because you do have to sand back the frame itself before you were to do the stippling job, because otherwise you end up with kind of deformed looking grip. Mag release is also standard. With the stippling job, obviously it has given a raised effect to the grip, so it kind of bulks it up a little bit, and this just sits, if you have a look here, ever so flush. For me, I'm just going to keep that standard. Obviously I hit the mag release very, very easily, so it's not something, I don't need an extended mag release or anything like that there, where I then run the possibility of bumping it off, say, my holster or off the inside of my leg or something like that, and then it releases that mag. Because again, with the P09, going back to it, I did have a problem one day where I lost a magazine for it because the mag release is so easy to push, and it bounced off the inside of the holster, and obviously I lost a mag that day. So making it harder to release that mag is perfect, but ultimately I can still release that mag very, very easily without having to change my grip or anything like that. That is the standard grip, and it's fine. Ultimately, the reason why you might want to upgrade this would be for durability. So the standard mag release that comes with the Glock 17, Tokyo Marui Glock 17, is plastic. So as you know, plastic is a little bit less durable than metal, so a lot of people will change it to a metal mag release just for that durability. It's not something that I'm totally worried about, but just bear that in mind if you are looking to enhance parts, make them last longer and that kind of thing. That's probably a good place to start, and it's a very cheap upgrade to do as well, but not one that I need to do right now. Moving down from there, we have a flared mag well. Now, the purpose of a flared mag well is to make it easier to turn your mag to the gun. So if you have a look, it's pretty hacked up. This mag well I got from China speaks for itself, really. That's kind of what you expect. For me, more than anything, it's more of an aesthetics type of thing because the Glock has a slightly flared mag well on the inside anyway, so putting those mags in is not really that difficult to begin with. So the inside of the Glock mag well is flared anyway, so return that mag home generally isn't very difficult anyway. Moving on from there, these little base plates are really, again, just for aesthetics because in the day they look pretty nifty. So if you just wanted to make it look cool, these were again bought from China. They were probably like £4 or something like that. You can see how they're retained on. There's a little screw in here that you would unscrew, drops this pin down. You can then remove the magazine from the base plate. Now, one thing I was concerned about with these, because they are made for the real Glock mags, and they do come with springs for an extension of your Glock mag. So if you had a real Glock, then you would take the base plate off, remove the spring, put the new base plate on, put the new spring in, and then obviously you get +2 rounds in your magazine. But obviously for AIRSOFT, it's just for aesthetics because there's nothing actually inside there, and obviously I've not drilled any holes in the bottom because it would still be too long to actually get a green gas kind of nozzle into there to fill up the mag. So to fill up the mag, I will have to remove this. But overall, very easy to get on and very easy to take off. I was concerned that with the bottom here, with the this little nub at the bottom, not really sure what it's called, but obviously it protrudes out the bottom and that kind of grips onto the Tokyo Marui base plate for the Glock 17s. That kind of causes that retention. So I was worried that maybe that might catch on this and might make it impossible to remove the base plate, so I was concerned. But because of the cutaway here on the back that you see, then the Glock mag just slides down, tilt it, and it's out. It's very, very easy. So while we're on the mag, we'll talk a little bit about some modifications I've done to the Tokyo Marui Glock mags. So I've got a garter high output valve on there, so that will mess with your efficiencies of your weapon, but ultimately, because the slide is heavier, you need more power to rock that slide back and get it to return. And if you come to your last BB, then you want it to stay locked back as well. If you're short stroking your slide or your spring guide, then obviously that's not really a big deal. If you get the performance out of it, that's fine. But I actually had to put these in just to help, because with that extra weight, your gas efficiency is terrible, and actually we were having issues with the slide cycling as well. So I've also got some 9-ball little gas routing seals here, and again that's just to improve the efficiency of the gas because the heavier slide. So let's move down to the internals of the frame. At the front here, it is totally stock, no changes made whatsoever, and obviously we've already discussed that. So whenever you are upgrading your Tokyo Marui Glock, if you again go for a heavier slide, then you're going to have to make some enhancements to your kind of trigger assembly. The main thing that people will try and do, and because they're so common and easy to get, is change the trigger spring in here to a 150% spring. Now there's one problem with that. Obviously that does mean that your hammer hits, so your valve knocker is going to hit your magazine a little bit harder and obviously expel a little bit more gas, which again will help with pushing that slide back. But the problem is, without any other modifications to the trigger housing, that doesn't really help, or it didn't, at least in my case. I did have 150% in there, 2 of them, just to try them and see if there's any difference, but they didn't help. So the problem that I faced with that was that obviously it does create a tougher wall to break, and that's not really a big deal, but it was more that when, let's put this back on. So when your slide is trying to cycle, actually I'll pull the trigger here just to show you. It'll hit this little tough spot here, and then you can see it just slides right past it. So what that is hitting off is this little guy here. So on any standard Tokyo Marui Glock, this will be a rotary style jabroni on there. I'm forgetting the name of it. So what will generally happen is the blowback housing on here will have to push that back. So obviously it'll knock these back, and then it will have to push this back. Obviously with the heavier housing and stuff like that there, you know, you've got less momentum because the slide is so heavy, it makes it very sluggish. It's going to have a lot of trouble pushing that back. So it's going to just about push it back maybe, and then return, and it's most of the time you will find that you don't have another BB loaded. So it'll fire that BB and it will probably shoot again and cycle, but it'll cycle like that, and that is not what you want, because then you may as well have a spring pistol because you're having to do this every time. It's not ideal. I would recommend playing around with the trigger springs before doing anything, or at least try and keep it stock if you can. But that is the whole purpose behind changing that, would be if you wanted to obviously create more gas coming out of there, but in my case it did not help whatsoever. So what I have done here, I've put in a 0 trigger. So push this, you can see that this guy is a funny shape. It's very, in fact, if not exactly similar to the Glock 18C type trigger. The purpose of it, it's a 0 trigger is what it's called. So the purpose of it is that it will ultimately create less friction between the hammer housing and that. So you can see that that is completely flat. There's nothing protruding up above the trigger housing, which could kind of come into contact with the blowback housing. So that is the sole reason that you would have that modification, and to be honest with you, that has quite significantly improved the efficiency as well. I mean, I'm sure you can see how smooth that is. Other parts inside, such as like the sear and the valve knocker and things like that, just be careful with the valve knocker. So the valve knocker, if you want to have a look inside there, that little piece that is protruding, so I don't know if you can see that. Let's try my best here. Should be a little bit protruding in there. So that basically is what hits the back of your valve, which shoots the gas out and then shoots your BB. So the problem with changing the valve knocker is that some of them aren't exactly to spec, which means that they may actually protrude. So if you see that hammers back. If you then push that will then protrude. Sorry, it will come back in. So you can see that that doesn't hang out whatsoever into that mag well. Now, if you had a slightly extended one, it can be even like a millimeter, like something really stupid, like something really small. But if that hangs over slightly, it can catch on the top of this little valve, and it can create a light striking problem because it would be kind of sitting on top instead of pushing the center of this, and it would just kind of bounce off it, A lot of the time you might shoot a little bit of gas, but then your trigger's dead, so it'll not reset. So that can be a problem if you are going to upgrade your valve knocker in any way. The reason why you might want to do it would be for durability, but just bear that in mind that it may require some slight modification to get it working totally right. Again, all the kind of internal parts here will be for durability, bar that kind of trigger itself. And for some more aesthetics, you can see that I've got the Surefire X300 Ultra on here, A style, and that is just for lighting boys up more than anything. But yeah, it's just for like CQB environments and things like that there. I don't have a weapon like my Evo because I wouldn't really use it that much, but I'll probably use it quite frequently on the Glock itself. That is the pistol build complete. There's no more modifications that I feel like I need to do to this thing right now. Obviously it is very expensive. Important thing to note, guys, because the first place you'll be looking whenever you're upgrading this Glock is probably going to be your slide, which is probably the most expensive part as well. But bear in mind that the fitment of the slide will not always be perfect. So go into it assuming that you're going to have to either put a lot of time or a lot of money into it to get it just right. You can see that mine has no problems. It is a very smooth slide. And I was very lucky. Obviously it was sticking a little bit at first. A little bit of grease has obviously resolved that issue. And now... So overall, guys, the main thing that I would recommend doing before upgrading your Tokyo Marui Glock, or even if you're looking into upgrading like a high kappa and things like that as well, is please bear in mind that just putting an aluminium frame or a steel frame, which would be even worse, onto here will not just magically work. There's a lot of different moving pieces inside this that you need to research and know exactly what can impact the efficiency of your weapon, so just bear that in mind. But overall, I'm very happy with how this turned out. In my opinion, it's a one-of-a-kind piece. I don't really see many custom Glocks here, let alone custom high kappas either, really. But so this is a nice little thing for me. Another quick note on the stippling side of things, by the way, guys. I don't want to create a video for this because there's so many videos on YouTube of how to stipple, and obviously that's how I was able to do my own stippling, was through researching and looking at videos on YouTube as well. The most important thing that I would say about it is that make sure that you are taking your time to do the outline perfectly to start with. Ultimately, if the outline is terrible, the stippling job is just going to look off. In terms of this pattern that I've done, that takes no skill whatsoever, if I'm honest. It's a randomized pattern, that there's no kind of structure to it, so you're not trying to create the exact same pattern all around. The whole point of it is for it to be messy. It's the sprinkles effect, so it's as if you've just thrown something on there and it's just stuck on. But overall, that pattern it's extremely grippy. It would actually tear the hands off you. If I'm honest with you, if you were holding on to this without gloves. Guys, like I said, please bear in mind that this is a lot of work. It's not just a case of firing a slide on here and all of a sudden you've got this new custom weapon. There's a lot more work that will go into this. Obviously you can upgrade Wii Glocks and things like that as well, which are generally designed to run with metal slides and things like that. So obviously bear that in mind that this was designed for a plastic slide setup. So it is a complete change up, but I know that Tokyo Marui parts are very robust and it's a very reliable pistol, so that is why I've chosen this as my kind of base for this project. So we all know custom Glocks are cool, but you can't look cool without training, so don't forget to get your training. I recommend such places as Cogworks, Halo Strategic, who's my dad, Green Laboratory, and you got Bear Solutions. So check them out, guys, and I've got nothing else for you. Okay, last thing. When you're taking a shit, don't forget to use toilet paper. It means that the shit doesn't get on your hand.